Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive, Fluency in English. I
Mhm.
bet a lot of you are thinking about that, right?
Absolutely. It's a popular goal.
So we're going to break down some expert advice on building a personalized study plan for English fluency.
Right.
But this is more than just a summary. We're going to extract those golden nuggets and those action steps so you can actually put a plan together that gets you speaking confidently and fluently.
Love it.
You ready for some light bulb moments?
Hit me.
Okay. So there are two different kinds of reading that are both super important for fluency.
Okay.
And get this, talking to yourself
Uh-huh.
can actually be an awesome way to improve your speaking.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're going to cover all that today.
Okay. So one thing I think is important is having a well-structured approach to language learning.
Okay, structure.
Yeah, it's kind of like planning a road trip, you know?
Ooh, I love.
You wouldn't just get in your car and start driving with no destination, right?
Right, you got to know where you're going.
Exactly. You want a destination. You need a route mapped out.
And maybe some fun stops along the way, right?
Exactly.
So in this case, fluency is our destination.
Yes.
That study plan is like our GPS.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And just like a GPS, a good study plan's got to be tailored to you.
Personalized.
Yeah, and I think this expert, he really emphasizes understanding why are you learning English?
Like before you even start the car.
Yeah,
What's the reason for this journey in the first place?
exactly. It could be for work, it could be for travel.
Personal growth.
Yeah, personal reasons. So before we go any further, what's your why?
Yeah, think about it for a sec.
Yeah, because this is the fuel that's going to keep you going when it gets hard.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, this expert, he breaks down fluency into 7 skills.
Mm.
Reading, writing, speaking, listening,
Okay.
vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation.
Okay.
These are like the building blocks.
Yeah, those are the key ingredients. And, you don't have to be great at all of them right away.
Of course not,
The key is to know what you're good at and what you need to work on.
honestly.
That's right. Yeah, so there's this really cool exercise. He suggests ranking each of those 7 skills from 1 to 7.
Okay, 1 to 7.
1 being your strongest, 7 being your weakest.
I like it.
So I actually want you to do this right now. Don't just keep listening.
Pause us.
Yeah, grab a piece of paper or open up a note on your phone. Make those rankings. It's a really good way to figure out what you need to focus on.
Totally. I'm doing it with you. So we've got our why locked in. We've ranked those skills.
Okay.
Now, how do we actually turn this into a study plan?
Well, that's where scheduling comes in. He has this really cool technique where you use your skill rankings to figure out how many times a week you practice each skill.
So let's say speaking is my weakest area. I ranked it a 7.
Right.
I might practice speaking every single day,
That makes sense.
but grammar, maybe I'm better at that.
Right.
I ranked that, a 3.
Uh-huh.
So maybe I only do that 2-3 times a week,
Yeah. Exactly. That way you're really focusing on those weaknesses.
but not forgetting about the strengths.
Exactly.
Smart. Okay, but let's be real. We're all busy people.
Yeah.
So this expert also gives us a simple formula to help us figure out how much time to spend on each skill.
Okay.
You take your total study time for the day,
Yep.
and you divide it by the number of skills that you're practicing.
I love it.
So let's say I've got an hour for English today.
Okay.
I'm focusing on 3 skills.
Yep.
That means 20 minutes each.
That's it. Simple, manageable.
Right. So even if you only have a little bit of time, this makes it doable.
Exactly. And now I think we're ready to dive into those specific techniques he recommends for each skill.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
This is where things get really interesting.
I'm excited.
Let's supercharge your learning. Okay, so before we jump into those specific techniques, let's just take a step back and talk about why this structured approach is so important. It's kind of like building a house. You need a solid foundation,
Yeah.
a good framework. Okay.
And then you can start adding all the details on top.
So in this case, our foundation is that understanding of our why, and the framework is the study plan.
Exactly. And now we can start laying some bricks.
I like it. I like it.
So let's start with reading.
Okay.
One of the cornerstones of language acquisition.
Reading. So the expert talks about 2 types of reading, right?
Yeah.
Quick reading to get the general idea.
Right.
And then detailed reading for deeper understanding.
Exactly.
I mean, I get why they're both important, but can you kind of explain why they matter for fluency specifically?
Sure. So think of quick reading kind of like exploring a new city.
Okay. Exploring a new city.
You're getting a feel for the layout, the main attractions, the overall vibe.
Right.
It helps you get fluent in skimming and scanning, which is really important for like reading emails, browsing websites, that kind of stuff.
So you're not getting bogged down in every single word. You're just trying to grasp those main points.
Exactly.
Right. Now, detailed reading, that's more like taking a guided tour of that same city.
Okay, deeper.
Yeah. Noticing the architectural details, understanding the historical significance, appreciating all those nuances.
Deeper dive.
Yeah, and this type of reading helps you develop richer vocabulary,
Okay.
better grasp of grammar,
Okay.
deeper understanding of all those subtleties of the language.
So it's kind of like moving beyond just understanding what's on the surface level
Right.
and really immersing yourself in the language.
Yeah, you're going deep.
Going deep. And just like when you're exploring a city, I mean, you wouldn't start in like the most complex, challenging area right away.
No, you got to build up to it.
So the expert recommends choosing reading materials that are right for your level,
Exactly.
which brings up those language levels,
Yeah.
right? The A2, the B1.
Yeah.
Can you explain what those actually mean in practical terms?
Sure. So those levels are part of the system called the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It's a mouthful, so CEFR for short.
CEFR, got it.
And it's basically a standardized way to assess language proficiency.
Okay.
So A1 is beginner level,
Yeah.
and then it goes all the way up to C2, which is mastery.
Okay, so someone at A2, B1, early on in their English journey,
Yeah.
the expert recommends starting with simplified resources, like Simple Wikipedia.
Yes.
What's so special about Simple Wikipedia?
So Simple Wikipedia uses much clearer language, simpler sentence structures.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, it's just easier to understand, you know,
Okay.
without getting lost in all those complex words and grammar.
So good stepping stone.
Yeah, it's a great starting point.
And then as you progress, like B2 and up,
Yep,
you can start to look at more authentic materials, right?
exactly. News articles, maybe some novels.
Academic papers, if you're feeling brave.
Exactly. The key is to challenge yourself,
Yeah.
but also stay within that comfortable zone. You want to push your boundaries, but you don't want to get overwhelmed,
Makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about writing.
right?
The expert seems to really emphasize focusing on real-world applications.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. When was the last time you had to write like a 5-paragraph essay about Shakespeare in everyday life?
Never.
Yeah.
Unless you're an English lit student.
Exactly. So in real life, we write emails,
Right.
text messages,
Reports.
maybe blog posts,
Yeah.
social media updates.
Exactly. So why not practice that?
Make it relevant.
Make it real.
And he gives a great tip about preparing drafts in advance
Yes.
for common situations.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. So let's say you often have to write emails in English for work.
Okay.
Instead of starting from scratch every single time, what you can do is take some time to write a few template emails for different purposes.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Like a template for asking for information,
Right.
a template for apologizing for a mistake,
Yeah.
a template for following up after a meeting. Exactly. And then when you're in a rush, you already have something to work from.
It takes the pressure off.
It does a...
You can focus on those little details and personalizing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've talked about reading. We've talked about writing.
Yeah.
Now let's tackle the big one.
The big one, the elephant in the room,
Speaking.
speaking.
Yeah.
I think this is the skill that most people, they struggle with. They feel anxious about.
Totally understandable.
Right.
It's putting yourself out there. You're vulnerable.
It's scary.
Yeah, you might make mistakes.
Right. You will make mistakes. It's part of the process.
Exactly. And, he keeps emphasizing consistency with speaking practice.
Right. Got to
Yeah.
practice. So what are some ways we can make that happen, even if we don't have, like, a language partner?
Well, that's where this technique of talking to yourself comes in.
Talking to yourself.
Yeah. Now, I know it sounds a little strange,
Yeah.
but it really works. When you actually say your thoughts out loud, you're engaging multiple senses. You're hearing yourself, you're forming the sounds, you're actually using your vocabulary and grammar in a spontaneous way.
Like a real-time workout for your brain.
Exactly. And, don't be afraid to get creative with it. Describe what you're doing while you're cooking dinner. Narrate your commute to work.
Right.
Have a whole conversation with yourself while you're taking a shower.
You embrace that inner monologue.
Yeah, give it a voice.
Give it a voice.
And of course, if you can find a language partner, that's amazing. But even if you're by yourself, consistency is key.
Right.
Even a few minutes every day makes a difference.
Okay, let's move on to listening.
All right.
Another one that can be tough, especially when you're dealing with fast native speech.
Yeah, it takes patience.
All right.
It takes persistence. But just like any muscle, the more you work it, the stronger it gets.
So he mentions this thing called the 2-minute subtitle technique.
Yes.
Can you break down how that works?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty simple technique, but it's really powerful. And it involves actively engaging with a short audio or video clip.
Okay.
So first, you listen to the clip with no subtitles. Just try to understand as much as you can.
Pushing your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you listen again with subtitles this time.
Okay.
So you can see what you understood correctly and fill in any gaps. And then you listen one more time.
Okay.
And this time, you actually try to write down, transcribe the dialogue
As you're listening.
while you're listening.
Right.
And that really helps you connect the sounds to the words.
Makes sense.
So you're internalizing the pronunciation, the intonation, the rhythm of the language.
That's awesome.
It's a multi-sensory workout for your listening comprehension.
Multi-sensory, I like that.
And you can use it with so many different materials.
Oh, yeah?
Movie clips,
TV shows.
YouTube videos, podcasts.
Oh, even this one. So listeners, try it out with this episode if you want to work on your listening.
It's a great idea.
All right, let's talk vocab.
Vocab.
He suggests keeping a vocabulary diary.
Yeah.
It's kind of a classic, right?
Yeah.
So what's so effective about that?
Well, it's all about personalization and really being active.
Okay.
So instead of just reading a list of words, you're
Right.
choosing words that matter to you.
That are relevant to your life.
Exactly. So if you're into technology, you might add words like algorithm or artificial intelligence to your diary.
Makes sense.
And the act of writing it down, writing the definition, maybe even an example sentence, really helps you remember it.
Yeah, it's like creating your own personal dictionary.
Exactly. And he recommends reviewing it regularly,
Okay.
especially before you go to sleep.
Right.
Studies have shown that that can help with memory.
So make it a habit. Jot those new words down. Look up the definitions.
Yeah,
And then give that vocab diary a little skim before you drift off to sleep.
exactly. All right, let's move on to grammar.
Grammar.
Often seen as the most daunting part, right?
Oh, yeah.
All those rules, all those exceptions.
It's intimidating.
But he has some great advice for how to approach grammar in a more meaningful way.
Okay, I'm interested.
So it's about moving beyond just memorizing things and seeing grammar as a tool to communicate.
Okay.
So instead of just memorizing verb conjugations, for example,
Yeah.
he suggests actually writing sentences using the grammar you're learning.
Well, that's a good idea.
So let's say you're learning about the past perfect tense.
Okay.
You wouldn't just memorize had plus past participle.
Right.
You would actually write sentences like, I had already eaten dinner when my friend arrived.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. So you're actually seeing it in action.
Putting it into practice.
Exactly. And aim for like 10 to 20 sentences for each grammar concept you learn.
Okay, so write it out, make it real.
And finally, pronunciation.
Pronunciation.
This is what brings the language to life.
Yeah, it's so important.
It lets you express yourself clearly and confidently,
Totally.
but it can also be one of the trickiest skills to master.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially if English has sounds that don't exist in your native language.
Absolutely. But don't let that discourage you.
Right.
Like anything else, pronunciation can be improved with practice.
Practice. Okay.
And he recommends making a list of words that you find challenging.
A pronunciation list.
Yeah, so choose words that you often mispronounce or that have sounds that are difficult for you.
Okay, so you got your list.
Yeah.
Now how do you practice?
So this is where technology can be really helpful.
Okay.
There are lots of online dictionaries and pronunciation websites where you can hear how native speakers pronounce those words.
So you can listen, mimic, and even record yourself.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to exaggerate the sounds at first.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah. Really focus on where your tongue is, the shape of your mouth, how the air is flowing.
It might feel silly.
It might, but it helps.
It helps.
And remember, pronunciation isn't just about individual sounds.
Right.
It's also about intonation, stress, rhythm.
All those things that make your speech sound natural.
Exactly. So pay attention to how native speakers use their voice to convey meaning and emotion.
Okay.
Try to imitate those patterns.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We explored those 7 key skills: reading, writing, speaking, listening, vocab, grammar, and pronunciation. What's next on our deep dive agenda?
So in part 3, I think we should take a step back and talk about some broader strategies for staying motivated, overcoming those challenges, and really making this plan part of your life. So we've explored all those 7 key skills,
We
right?
have.
And all those techniques for improving each one. But, language learning, it takes time.
It does.
It takes dedication.
So how do we make sure we don't, run out of steam along the way?
Yeah, how do you stay motivated? It's a great question. And I think the expert really tackles this head on.
Okay.
It's all about keeping that motivation going, even when it gets tough.
It's so easy to lose motivation. So give me some strategies. How do we stay motivated when that initial excitement wears off?
Well, one of the easiest things you can do is celebrate the small wins.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught up in that big goal of fluency, but it's those little victories along the way that keep you going.
Yeah, give me some examples. Like what kind of small wins?
So let's say you finally figured out that grammar rule that's been tripping you up.
Uh-huh.
Celebrate that. Or you managed to have a 5-minute conversation in English without, completely freezing up.
Awesome.
High five yourself.
I love that. It's about recognizing those milestones.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reward yourself for those efforts. Did you stick to your study schedule all week?
Yes.
Treat yourself to something you enjoy, a movie, a nice meal,
Right.
a relaxing bath, whatever.
It's like creating those positive associations with language learning.
Exactly. You want to make it something you enjoy, not something you dread.
Right.
And speaking of enjoying things, let's talk about making language learning fun.
Fun, yes. Because if it's boring, you're not going to stick with it.
Exactly. So think about activities you genuinely enjoy and figure out how to add English into them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me some examples.
Are you a movie buff?
I am.
Start watching movies and TV shows in English with the subtitles on.
Okay, what else?
Love reading.
Yeah.
Pick up an English novel.
Love music.
Listen to English songs.
Sing along.
Yes. The key is to make English part of your life, not just a thing you do in a textbook.
Right, make it a natural part of your day.
And don't forget about the power of community.
Oh,
Connecting with other English learners can be a huge motivator.
It's like having a support system, right?
Exactly. People who understand what you're going through.
Celebrate the wins with you.
Exactly. Join online forums, language exchange groups, maybe even find some local meetups.
Right.
Share your struggles, celebrate your wins, learn from each other.
Okay, so community, really important. But, even with all the best intentions, we're going to hit those rough patches, right?
Of course. There will be plateaus. You'll run into challenges that feel impossible.
Yeah, and that can be so discouraging.
Yeah.
What do we do when we feel stuck?
Well, the first thing is to remember that setbacks are normal.
Okay, normal.
Everyone who learns a language goes through them.
Right.
It's part of the process, so
Yeah.
don't let them derail you.
That's the key.
Yeah. If you find yourself hitting a wall, take a step back, look at your goals again. Look at your study plan. Are your goals still realistic?
Right. Realistic.
Is your study plan still working for you?
Maybe it needs a refresh.
Maybe you need to try a new technique or find some different resources.
Sometimes you just need that fresh perspective.
Exactly. And remember, there are so many resources out there to help you.
Textbooks.
Online courses,
Tutors.
immersive experiences.
Find what works for you.
Exactly. So to wrap up this whole deep dive, we want to leave you with this. You've got the knowledge. You've got the tools.
We've given you the tools.
And hopefully the inspiration to create that personalized plan for achieving fluency in English.
It's time to take action.
Yes.
What's one step, big or small, that you can commit to taking today?
Schedule a study session. Join that language exchange group.
Pick up that English novel you've been meaning to read.
Whatever it is, take that step.
Embrace the journey. Celebrate those small wins.
Never stop learning.
The rewards of fluency are huge, and we're excited to see you reach your language goals.
Absolutely.
Happy learning.